Ladies and gentlemen, in this corner, the once and future champion of AI, IBM. You're watching Techstrong, gang. Hey, everyone. Happy Thursday to you. It's been a crazy week. It's Thursday already. It's flying by. So much news, so much going on. The chaos just keeps spinning round and round. But we've got a lot to go over today. I teased it a little bit up front. Big news from IBM in the AI space, but I don't know how much of it is, well, there's a lot of it that's AI, but there's more to it than AI, but we're going to get into that. We've got Google, what's going on with them, and some things. And then interestingly, we found some people with a conscience in the Department of Government Efficiency. I thought they purged all those people. But anyway, let's first introduce our panel who's going to discuss these matters today. I'm going to start off out west with our Silicon Valley eye in the sky, John Swartz. John, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's a crazy news cycle, as you just mentioned, Alan. So we're just trying to keep our head above water.
All one. I think a lot of people are in that boat, John.
Yep. Not just tech. Yes.
Yep. Trying to keep your head above water. Moving from there, I guess we'll go down to Austin, Texas, where preparations are underway for South by Southwest, we hear. It's our own Ann Ahola Ward. Ann, good to have you. How's everything?
Always a pleasure. It's wonderful. Beautiful sunny weather here. Couldn't be happier with that. And preparations are well underway for South by Southwest.
You've been exercising your liver?
It's going to be a good one.
It's going to be a good
Sorry?
one? I said, have you been exercising your liver?
I need to find another one. I need to get a donor probably by the end of the week, but
it'll be a good time. Good for you. Moving up to Ohio, where she's back from her recent trip to New York. She's our editor for Techstrong AI, Gestalt IT, and more coming down the pike. Salagna Saha. Hi, Salagna. How are you?
Hi, Alan. I'm good. Thank you.
Good. It's great to have you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, the Dean of Harrison, our Chief Content Officer, Mike Vizard. How are you, Dean?
Harrison is in Westchester County, otherwise known as the central of all things IBM, because, well, just about everybody here who's in tech seems to work for IBM.
Yes, the old Armonk. So Armonk isn't Westchester, is it?
It's one county north,
Putnam.
But well, actually, Armonk is in Westchester. It's I forgot the other town they used to be where they had the big pyramid building that they abandoned a couple of years ago.
Okay. I always thought it was Putnam, but could be, yeah. I mean, certainly. I mean, here, look, down here in Boca Raton is a big IBM town too, right?
They have a huge office and presence in Austin as well.
Yeah.
And San Jose, California. They had the Cottle Road labs where my dad worked for 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, they're IBM.
They're everywhere.
Yeah.
They were.
For more than 100 years. But some big news out of IBM. Mike, why don't you kick us off with this?
All right, let's jump into it. IBM bought DataStax, which originally cut its name on this open source Cassandra NoSQL database. It was more of a higher performance database than your average document database, and it got a solid following. And then DataStax extended its reach into vectors and their ability to use that as a foundation for training models. And then they also built a more elegant alternative to LangChain, which you can use for training the models. And it's one of the LangChain being widely used open source tool, but it's a little cumbersome. So DataStax has this alternative. John, you wrote this story, but what are they saying in the Valley about all this? Because, here at one point, IBM was supposed to be, the next overlord and Watson and Jeopardy. And then suddenly they were chasing everybody.
I think the same applies to Silicon Valley. They're almost, I hate to say this, given the presence that I just mentioned that they had in San Jose for so long, they were the tech company here. They're an afterthought in the valley. They're rarely talked about. They have a presence, but it's tucked up in the hills in northern San Jose. Um, in a sense, when we talk about the AI race, IBM is rarely mentioned here, and the only reference is to Watson, and that's from years ago. So this idea that IBM is acquiring data stacks is interesting. I mean, it's a move by IBM to kind of turbocharge its Watson X portfolio and kind of make the use of generative AI within enterprises kind of accelerate that. Um, it's important. It's just, Mike, it's here. It's so interesting the way things develop here. And this is not so much about IBM, but about just the perception of companies here. They are the hot company for a few years, like IBM was. Then Microsoft was the anti IBM, and then Google became the anti Microsoft. Apple is the anti everything. They have their runs, and I would even venture to say that a company like IBM is starting to get a little long in the tooth. Excuse me, a company like Apple is starting to get long in the tooth and being considered kind of an older fuddy-duddy type of company versus the upstarts. Unfortunately, that's the culture here, the new shiny object. So the announcement by IBM is interesting. It will have an impact, I would assume, among some of the customers that already use data stacks and financial services. But for the most part, it's kind of under the radar.
I mean, it's a data grab, right? I mean, it's the AI gold rush for data. I have nothing but good things to say about IBM because they were very good to me. I was in their futurist program for a very long time. They flew me around the world to just try products and tweet about it. It was really fun. But I think being cool in Silicon Valley is something that I used to care about, and I don't anymore. It's very freeing. But I mean, it's essentially the future. You're living in the future when you live in Silicon Valley. And that means a lot of sacrifice to your day-to-day life. It also means that you're a startup or you're nothing. And so I don't think that that's really necessarily a gauge of success. IBM has had the staying power up beyond any other tech company. And this just shows you how they plan to continue to evolve and thrive.
The one thing I was going to mention too was the idea that Silicon Valley reminds me. You sparked this, man, of Hollywood. You're hot, you're in, and then you're discarded until you come back and do something again. So there are all sorts of companies and individuals who are the person of the moment who went away. So staying power is really important. And you're right, IBM has been around for more than 110 years, I think. I remember doing one of those 100-year stories years ago. It's interesting, but and again, in the big picture, the frame of things, this is kind of a small piece. I don't mean to undersell it, but that's basically a perception here, at least.
So
So,
I'm scared,
go ahead.
Mike. No, Mike, you go.
So the thing with IBM is they obsess about the monetization, and rightfully so. But what happens is every time they do something new or interesting or they acquire it, they shove it in this kit bag that they give to IBM Consulting, who then goes down and visits all these enterprises and integrates all that stuff into these global 2000 companies, and that's the business model. And so that's why every time they acquire something or they do something innovative, it just kind of falls by the wayside, because when it comes to actually implementing it, there isn't really a push to build a platform and invite developers. I mean, they talk about doing that stuff, but on the execution side, they just blow it every time because they're kind of obsessed with being a consulting company at the end of the day.
In fact, they just unveiled their AI integration consulting services around agentic AI, which is supposed to help companies embed generative AI more safely and expedite the adoption just yesterday, I think. But I feel like IBM may be onto something. I know they got leapfrogged a bunch of times, even though they were really one of the first people in the AI race. Um, so I think with their efforts around Watson X, their AI product portfolio, and the data stack acquisition, and then with the data stack acquisition announcement, they also announced an agreement with Riyadh Air, the new Saudi airline company, that they're integrating Watson X into their operations. And And with the upcoming MWC Barcelona in March, I hear that AI is going to be a big area of focus. So IBM claims that their AI journey started back in, in the 1950s when they programmed the 704 mainframe computer with to play chess and whatever. But really, and with IBM, I feel like that this company has touched literally every milestone technology in the tech space for over 100 years, like punch cards, PCs, mainframe, and I feel like they're more gearing up for the AI revolution than before. And like all big companies and that have skin in the game, the vision is to embed AI across the board, which may not necessarily be like the most distinctive strategy, but I feel like that they have done a few things lately which shows that they are sort of going to be a part of the decidedly be a part of the AI race. I mean, we saw at Hot Chips last year, they announced that they were turbocharging the next generation of Z mainframe with the Telum 2 processor and the SPRI accelerators. And those chips are coming out this year, hopefully. Yeah, so it appears that they are vying for the top, not the top spot maybe, but at least be shoulder to shoulder with the big companies that are in the AI race.
So let me weigh in here. It is interesting, John, public perception, and not just Silicon Valley public perception, but broader public perception. Let's compare three companies. You've got IBM, which, as you said, is about 110 years old. You have Microsoft recently celebrated its 50th birthday. Apple is about the same, isn't?
50.
Yeah.
50 in April.
Yep, Apple's also 50. And let me just
Or
throw
so.
another one in for grins and giggles. Google. Right? Google's probably about 2002, 2003, 2001, something like that. So let's say 25 years, half the age of the other two. Perception. Google is still perceived as an 800-pound gorilla controlling the markets it plays in and as an innovator. Apple is having an innovation problem, an innovation dilemma right now, where the market is saying, where's the innovation? We haven't really seen innovation since Steve Jobs passed away. Microsoft, say what you want, but Satya Nadella has re-energized that company, and they are perceived. They were out in front with OpenAI. That investment was probably the best $10 billion they ever put in. And they're second in cloud and all of these things. So even though they're 50 years old, they've reinvented themselves a little bit. IBM, as Solagna says, punch cards, the birth of the PC. The first time we started thinking of AI was Watson and the chess game and all of these things. They have a 100-year history of leading innovation. The Power PC chip, they don't get enough credit for that. When we look at what ARM is today and all of that, look what they did for those chips, the non-Intel chips, mid-range computers, mini computers. So many innovations that come out of there. Exotic materials, quantum computing, they're still a leader there. But the MO is they're first with these things. They're out ahead because they do plow money into R&D and give them credit. And they do buy and acquire a lot of companies. Give them credit. But somewhere along the way, as Mike says, those accomplishments go out of the hype cycle, not necessarily into the trough of disillusionment, but they level out and you don't see them. And part of it is because they're not necessarily, like Broadcom does this too, they're not necessarily looking for new customers. They just want to go deeper into the customers they already have. And so the customers they already have say, hey, do you have the IBM AI built into your stuff? Yeah, I think so. My IBM guy put it in or whatever, or, they talked about it. So kudos to IBM for being able to kind of surf that wave all of these years. But I think the key to their success is not necessarily surfing the fastest, the highest, or the hardest. It's staying right in the in the top right quadrant of the pack, but not necessarily in the lead. Now, I do want to talk a second about data stacks though, because I'm a startup guy. And let's give a big shout out to the data stacks people. You want to talk about pivoting and reinventing yourself, right? These were a big data company with Cassandra, right? NoSQL database. Jumped on the vector database bandwagon early on when, companies frankly like Mongo that had a vector database solution didn't realize what to do with it. And they went that route with the vector database and then took it the next step. And now they're being sold here as an AI company. There's OpenAI, there's Anthropic and DataStax. When did they become an AI company? But I'm sure they got
Anyone with enough data is an AI company at this point.
exactly. Everybody's an AI company, like we're all AI engineers. So I didn't see what they paid for DataStax. I don't know if any of you have. Yeah, but I didn't hear, on the grapevine or anything. But I'm sure it was a pretty penny. This wasn't a fire sale. And congratulations to the DataStax team. That's what startup culture is all about. Good for you guys. Now we'll see what happens to them as part of Big
So
Blue.
the one thing I would add to all that, and I remember having this conversation with IBM marketers, and I was like, why don't you market these platforms and these technologies? And they explained it this way. They said, fundamentally, we're marketing IBM people and expertise, and all the other things are enablers for that. And so, but they lead with all, if you're here in New York, you can't go anywhere without running into an IBM ad, but they're all the same. They're all about, somebody at IBM has some expertise that you need.
But I wonder how much Kyndryl's changed that.
I was going to mention. Can I mention something that happened with Jeannie Remedi? Just to give you an insight behind the curtains. When this company IBM was doing interesting things, as Mike said, they're almost treated like a consulting company out here. And again, maybe it's because they're an East Coast based company that seems to have some sort of humility, which is lacking out here. But the one thing that was interesting was that Ginny Remedi would always submit to USA Today when I worked there as a tech editor. She would submit these columns to explain what they were doing because their marketing was kind of ho hum. And they would try to work out a sweetheart deal with our editor in chief to run some of her commentary. And I would sometimes say, this is, bullshit. This is propaganda. We read it more often than not, but that gives you an idea that even they acknowledged that they weren't getting the message through.
So Kyndryl, come back to that for a minute because it is significant, right? So when they spun out Kyndryl, they really put all their tech support, managed services stuff in there, but they kept IBM Consulting with the main company, which allegedly is a quote unquote software company these days because it has higher valuations. But, point of fact is the route to market is still through those consultants.
Fair enough.
And another reason I feel like why IBM does not come up as one of the most frequently named names, at least in the AI conversation, is because they put 8 years behind Watson, but got eclipsed by ChatGPT. And also a bigger reason is that their share prices did not move much. At least their AI revenue was not through the roof or anything. So that didn't
No,
get,
they never figured out how to monetize Watson. I remember being at IBM Think 10 years ago, and they were showing me dating apps built on Watson that would find you better dates and stuff like that. But they didn't. They were out there and they kind of missed that one. But
Hey, one last thing on that. You know who else we talk about a lot less these days?
who?
Red Hat.
Red Hat who? Red Hat who? They've been Borg.
Mhm.
We will be assimilated. They've been assimilated. They're now red hats who wear red ties with blue suits. Isn't that the uniform? Anyway, hey, let's take a break. We're going to come back, and you know what? Google's done us wrong. I'm speaking on behalf of all publishers now. You're watching Techstrong Gang.
Discover Techstrong Group, the epicenter of tech innovation. We're your go-to for reaching IT leaders and practitioners worldwide. Our secret? Impactful content that sparks awareness, engagement, and top-quality leads. With us, you'll access editorial websites, streaming videos, virtual events, custom content, analyst research, and more. Join our satisfied clients. Let's revolutionize your tech journey. Contact us today and tell your story to the world in the most powerful way with Techstrong Group.
Hey folks, we're back and we're talking about a lawsuit actually involving Chegg, which is a publisher of medical information, and they're suing Google over their AI summarization capabilities. And it's interesting. I'm not quite sure what the legal grounds are, but one of the claims that they're making is that this AI summarization capability is hollowing out the internet and the knowledge thereof because it's just summarizing everything. And if you watched the previous episode of Techstrong Gang, we talked about whether or not AI was making us all stupid. And this is part of that kind of conversation. But the question then becomes, is this, and we'll start with you, is this kind of shift here with these AI summarization is going to ultimately wind up killing all the companies that create the content, and then therefore we won't have anything on the internet that's worth looking at anyway. So
Well, great question. I would argue that content creators were already under siege. Monetizing based purely on traffic has been a business model that's been failing for some time. I mean, you remember when people used to make money from ads from banners, banner traffic, skyscraper ads? That's been leveled out. Um, I think it's interesting because to me as an SEO, keep in mind this is what I do all day every day. It's not really that different from Google Answers. Google Answers, where it asks a question and it answers it. This is sort of just a rehashing of that. But I think that the crux of the lawsuit is that Google is eroding the demand for original content, which I don't actually agree with. I don't think that AI generated summaries necessarily reduce the need for people to read and want more information. Does it give them at a glance? Does it give them a link? Yes. Undermining publishers' abilities to compete was another point, which I think is probably a fair point to make because they are essentially taking snippets of it and benefiting from it. So I think that the Perplexity model is a little more democratic, where they're brokering partnerships with New York Times and other big publishers and saying, "Hey, let's work out a financial arrangement." Google doesn't really do that. Any arrangements they make with Twitter, LinkedIn, these social media sites that they've done for years have all been sort of quiet partnerships, right? I like the fact that Perplexity discloses, but you're talking about 120 million searches a month versus 130 billion, right? So the economies of scale aren't there. Um, but the other argument was that they're creating a hollowed out information ecosystem. Basically, that it's gonna lead to a decline in quality and trustworthy information. Well, can we put that at Google's door? It wasn't that happening anyway with disinformation and other things happening? Are they making it worse? Probably. I think that a lot of publishers are bent out of shape because of the drop in traffic. But that could happen with an algorithm change. That could happen with a lot of other things. It just so happens that AI has become a boogeyman for these sites because their business models are failing. Are they justified? Probably. I do think that we need to value free and fair press. We need to value information and the ability to find good information. Do we want Google doing this for us? No, but again, it's not that new. It feels new, but it's not, because of the Google Answers. That's been around for a long time, and this is just a sort of more prominent way of doing that. It's a little more at a glance. You don't have to toggle it. Um, But
I
AI
don't think
searches,
anybody knew where Google Answers was, so that's
yeah, Google Answers are where you see it, it's a question and then you click. Yeah, so 30 to 50% of searches at this point in time, and it varies based on the study you read, 30 to 50% have AI overviews. So this isn't even rolled out to all searches. So we have to think about what is the impact gonna be once that full rollout happens. And they're adding countries every month. So what is that gonna do globally to information? I don't know, but it's something that's being very closely watched and studied, and I don't think this is the last lawsuit we're gonna see. I think we're gonna see even more of these because it's essentially taking and co-opting information that is not theirs and presenting it as theirs is essentially, I think, really, really not untrue. I think that they were fair in stating that.
So let's cut the crap. This isn't about AI per se. This is about the M word, monopoly. Google has a stranglehold on people searching for information on the internet. And for the 25 plus years that they've been doing it, they did it in conjunction with most content publishers in the world, including Techstrong, because in exchange for their being able to spider our sites and we want all of our information and we're going to put it in as Google friendly a format as we can and publish sitemaps and all of these things so that Google can get all of that. The quid pro quo there was then when people search certain terms that are germane to us, our sites would rank or would show up, hopefully in the top 3, if not the first page, and people would come to these sites to consume that content and get that information. They didn't get the information per se at Google. They found out where to get the information from Google. And so companies, publishers like a Techstrong and similar were getting 75, 80, 85% of their traffic from what we called organic search, Google search, because they represent 98% of the 99% of the market. Now, starting with Google Answers, which was clunky and not as elegant maybe as the AI stuff is now, Gemini, Google made a concerted effort to say, we don't want to lose that traffic. We don't want to send that traffic to other people's sites. We want to keep that traffic here so we could serve them ads, so we could gather more information about them, so we can do what we do to monetize these things, right? And this didn't start with AI, and you're right. We've seen a steady erosion of traffic from organic search for a couple of years now. But the quid pro quo is still there. Well, if you're not going to send me traffic, don't use my information. Because you are now monetizing my information without my permission. And the same way we're mad at OpenAI and we laugh at OpenAI talking about DeepSeek using OpenAI's information when OpenAI didn't pay for that information either. Well, I got news for you. Google didn't either.
I would say Gen Z, millennials, they're less interested in using Google search.
You're right. TikTok and
the under 30,
Instagram. Yep.
yeah, the under 30 crowd is more statistically likely to search TikTok for local search than Google, and that's because that experience is better. So the empire is crumbling a little bit, and this may be a move to counteract that. But they're still the giant. I mean, they're still the one. This book I wrote about SEO for O'Reilly is still, I mean, I say in the beginning, I hope it's not always about Google. And that was 2017. And yet here we are still talking about Google.
So every action has an opposite reaction, and everybody who creates content is going to start putting up registration walls and putting up stuff to prevent you from getting to that content without actually going through them to get to it. And that's just going to be the natural order of things, because to Alan's point, the quid pro quo is gone. So no quid, the pro is going to go somewhere else.
If you're making money from your content, it is generally going to be from something other than just directly people viewing said content. It's going to be you talking about it on Instagram. It's going to be you using affiliate links as an influencer. If you're a rogue person like me, I have a business, right? I have an agency that I sell my services, right? So I'm not monetizing directly from content I put out there.
I
So
don't know
that
if that
model.
makes you rogue, Ann. That's a harsh word.
Well, I've worked for myself for 15 years, so I guess that's pretty rogue. But the point is that making money from just putting out good content as an individual, as a small outfit, there's some concession you have to give. You have to do conferences. You have to, just making it on its own is not something that has been viable for a minute. And we can blame Google for that, I think, to a large extent. But I don't know. Can we put all of this at their door? I don't know.
Yeah,
It
I
just
mean,
seemed all inevitable. Go ahead, Slogna.
yeah, I was saying that it's really not new because every time Google changes its algorithm, sites get pushed to the back pages, some even get de-indexed, and then there's this obvious drop in engagement and traffic. But what I think is really hurting some of these publishing companies is the fact that with the AI overview, so the key purpose of AI overview is to provide quick answers and save users' browsing time. And so that way users would just simply read, like browse through whatever the AI summaries are, and probably would not go to the page that actually has the original information. But to make matters worse, these answers are unverified and often inaccurate. We all remember the glue on pizza and Rockaday keeps a doctor away answers from last year. And yes, Google has done a series of changes, and to be fair, Google AI alone is not jank. ChatGPT wasn't that great either early on. But the key issue here is that Google or OpenAI or whatever company is doing AI search, they are harnessing publishers' original content, which they put money and years into to create, and to generate these summaries that are not even reliable. So that going forward is definitely going to be a problem, and that's probably what their point is. The publishers who NYT sued Google in 2023, and there has been a slew of litigations lately based on in and around this area.
I absolutely, you're correct. And I think if I could make a prediction here, I think, the reason I always bring up Perplexity is that it is time-based, it is reputation-based, it's LLM plus index. The future of search is not going to be index as Google has so heavily relied upon. And so this is a sort of clunky way that they're trying to essentially enter LLM into index and to mix them. And the mix isn't necessarily good, but I think the future of search is absolutely going to be coming from AI agents. I think we're going to see more and more search. I'm seeing GPT. I'm seeing Bing show up in the top 10 and sites that I'm optimizing. That's never happened, and that's exciting to me. So there's hope.
No, there isn't. Perplexity is just giving me a citation. It doesn't drive any traffic to me. It's a very nice little salute as they drive by and steal my content. So they're no better than anybody else just because they waved at me and said thank you.
They do chain of thought, though. They do show you how they get to the conclusion, which is helpful.
We talked about legacy. Going back to IBM, we talked about legacy, and the legacy of Google was always to not be like IBM and to do no evil. And as Alan mentioned earlier, the M word, monopoly. I mean, this is not surprising what happened with the algorithm changes at the expense of content creators. I mean, there's a duopoly between Google and Meta in terms of advertising, which has all but killed the fourth estate. So, this is part of their legacy that needs to be put out there.
I'll tell you what I am looking forward to that I will no longer have to care about. It's called SEO. A lot of time and effort spent on optimizing sites for Google traffic that I'm probably not going to spend nearly as much time being worried about.
If you're only thinking about Google, you've already lost. Search is everywhere. Search is in everything we do on every platform we use.
Spoken like a true SEO rogue warrior. Rogue Warrior
SEO
1.
Battlefield.
Ex-
SEO Battlefield.
Thank you, Ann. All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back and handle our third block today. Some surprising resignations over at Doge. Is it Doge or Dog? Doge. Who the hell knows? You're watching Techstrong, gang.
SecurityBoulevard.com is the leading resource for news, analysis, and education on challenges facing the cybersecurity industry. SecurityBoulevard.com covers all aspects of cybersecurity, including data security, DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, network security, security threats, and more. SecurityBoulevard.com has the largest selection of security content, featuring breaking news, blog posts, podcasts, and more. Visit www.securityboulevard.com to learn more. SecurityBoulevard.com, home of Security Bloggers Network.
Hey, folks, we're back, and as Alan alluded to, there are some conscientious objectors have emerged at Doge, which I'm kind of surprised about. I thought that had all been weeded out, but a couple of federal employees with technical expertise basically put out a joint letter saying that they would no longer, quote unquote, participate in the dismantling of democracy and its services. Alan, I know we've talked about this subject in the past, but is this going to be a larger trend? Will other government agent employees kind of stand up and say, you know what, we're not doing this either, and maybe we're on the verge of something that feels like a general strike? I don't know.
Viva la France. So, first of all, I thought they checked that you can only have a black heart if you worked at Doge. You couldn't have a conscience. I guess not. They must have inherited some legacy, folks.
They did. They did. These people were already there as USDS employees. And they had come from Amazon and Google. So I just wanted, can I just put that out there, because these people were actually trying to do their job, and they basically felt like they were forced out.
Yeah, I mean, look, we see what's going on here, guys, right? You don't use a blunt instrument where you need a scalpel. And so when you do things like that, the results are what the results are going to be here. And I do think it's only a matter of time. I was reading an article today, the governorship in Virginia is up for election this year in November, right? A lot of federal folks down in Virginia losing their jobs and feeling this pain. Not that the governor of Virginia has done such a great job. What's his name? Len Youngkin or whatever. I think we are going to start seeing the manifestations of this chaos, of this dismantling of America, right? We're going to start seeing when people start voting.
Yeah. I would say that to give credit on the other side of that governor conversation, the governor of New York said she's excited that there's a bigger pool of talent to hire from, and she's inviting all those Doge people and laid off government workers to apply for jobs in the state of New York.
Yeah, these were engineers, data scientists, product managers, designers. They're talented people. And they got thrown under the aegis of Musk, who, is the worst boss ever. So more power to them. They also were reacting to layoffs of their peers. There were 40 layoffs just before that. And plus, these individuals were being questioned about their political loyalties as part of their job, which is just absolutely absurd. But then again, we're used to this now.
It's almost McCarthy-esque, isn't it?
So in a lot of ways, though, this kind of resembles how layoffs often get handled in private companies, right? What typically happens in a lot of organizations, especially the larger ones, is somebody comes up with a number and says, we're going to cut 5%. And then, who gets cut is just generally
Time out. Don't even go there. Don't go. This is not a 5% cut. These are people doing searches, looking for things like diversity or inclusion. And if it has that word in it, they cut you out, whether it's 2%, 5%, or 50%. Has nothing to do with that. This is a political hit list kind of campaign here, right? This is not your company-wide, we got to cut 10%. They're targeting specific enemy lists and specific kinds of programs that they deem not in line with their worldview. Let's not give them the dignity of comparing it to something like that. This is a hack with a machete, right? Yep.
So this is a political cut that
No
happens to add
doubt
up to the
about
number
it.
they're claiming is their number, right?
Right. Take the US aid thing. You think there was a percentage they wanted to cut out of that? No, they think that we're done giving food to people and they cover it by telling us it was all based on condoms for Palestine or whatever. Come on, it's nonsense. It's nonsense. This is a political hatchet job. And when the people
Musk,
wake
I
up,
mean,
go ahead. I'm sorry,
he's
John.
using this. Yeah, Musk is using the same playbook that he did at Twitter, right? He gets rid of the people that he thinks are politically infused. But in this case, I sometimes think you give him too much credit. I think they're just blindly cutting like wild. I mean, it is precise in terms of certain people, but I also think they're not. This is just like a wild free for all and slashing,
Right.
and I don't think they're putting a lot of thought.
I forgot what agency it is, but they cut him one week and had to hire him back the next week because they figured
No, there was
he knew.
nothing important. It was just the nuclear engineers. No big deal.
I mean, they got so drunk with power that they've cut so many people that they realize, oh, wait a second, we can't run that operation now. And then you're seeing this in these town hall meetings. It's just incredible pushback because services are being denied. But I mean, this is part and parcel of their crazy plan.
And then they're not complying. The courts are saying, no, you have to do these things, and they're not doing it. Look.
I mean, there's 14 states pushing legislation to stop Elon and what he's doing. I don't know how successful they will be, but I expect after an attack, there will be a counterattack. This is America. We're not going to take this lying down. We're going to fight for what we believe in. And yes, it's gross. And yes, it's undignified, but it's also part of the democratic process. And I think democracy is going to see the greatest test it's seen, since its inception. I really do. And I'm ready to fight for what I believe in. I'm not going to just sit and read news and get mad. I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to lobby. I'm going to maybe even go to a demonstration. I don't know. I'm kind of scared of public anything.
So
and I live in
I
Texas.
was in New York. I was in New
I'm
York.
going to do what I can do.
Yeah, no, I was in New York this week and down Broadway, and it was freezing out. But down Broadway came a demonstration of hundreds of people chanting, hey, hey, ho, ho, Eric Adams must go, right? And stop the immigration. And because what happened there was a travesty. I've had friends reach out to me and say, hey, on Techstrong Gang, should we talk about politics or politically charged subjects? And I think we have a duty, and to your point, we have a duty to. Because history shows us, if you sit back quietly and, as you say, read the news, you're a collaborator. At Nuremberg, the I was following orders defense didn't hold water. I'm not saying these are Nazis, so we're not going there right now yet. But you can't sit by quietly. If you are a patriot, you have a duty to speak up for what you believe in. John?
Oh, I don't think we have a choice, actually, because the people that we cover are part of this movement. They are part and parcel of aiding and abetting what's going on, and they are enriching themselves. And in the process, we don't have a choice. We have to write about this accurately.
Yeah, tech has its mitts all over this. Big tech does.
Oh my God! Yes, it's the oligarchs are they're leading this anti-revolution. They're just engorging themselves.
Right. So part of the issue, though, and there was a good report on this on CBS News 2 days ago, and they went and they interviewed a bunch of folks in various small towns, and they were all convinced that the government was inefficient, it was wasteful, and they didn't have a lot of sympathy for these people being cut. So it wasn't something that they were riled up about. And I have to wonder if part of that is maybe the government agencies just need to do a better job of explaining what they do to people so they understand and they evaluate. Because
now, you know what, Mike? This is the opposite of NIMBYs. Until it's in their backyard, they don't give a crap. But when their daughter gets laid off, or their son all of a sudden can't go to school, or their milk goes bad, or their farms go bad in the field, then all of a sudden stuff hits the fan. And what the heck's going on? Right? That's the nature of the beast. Until it hits home, it's always good to point to the next guy. Oh, yeah, those people are inefficient. Is government inefficient? Yeah. Is it almost by design? Yes. Is it the best of the worst form of government that we've ever had on this planet? Yes. Right? And so, if you're okay throwing babies out with bathwater, go ahead. Right? But that's what's going on here. So, and we shall see where the chips fall. To Ann's point, right? This is still America, I think. And I think,
We still have democracy. We still have
yeah.
checks and balances.
And those
It does not
people in
change who
those,
we
I
are.
don't care what map they show you, all of those people in those little towns don't equal all those people in cities and suburbs and so forth, where most of 80% of our population lives.
And as a wise man once said, if you throw stones, make sure that you're not living in that glass house, because they'll come back the other way.
I have to think about what my late father used to always say in these situations. Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Yeah. Yes. All right. But hey, more power to those conscientious folks who showed they do have a conscience and a heart and stood up for what's right. So we need more of that in America. Guys, if that's it, I think we're going to call a wrap on this version of the Techstrong Gang. I can't wait to see what we talk about tomorrow. It's Friday. And Salagna, John, Mike, thanks for joining me. I'm Alan Schimmel. You've just watched Techstrong Gang. Stay tuned. We have a full Techstrong TV schedule for you coming right up. Till then, we're out.